it's fantastic you're here. Because Ruth is the matriarch of all that is farming in the southwest, I would say. Would you say so? Would you say, Ruth? Well, everybody knows with Kimber's, I'm slightly overdoing it. Kimber's farm shop down the road, Kimber's farm, 5 generations farming family, no more, hundreds of generations.
350 years we've been in Chalmers Grove farming,
right.
The Kimbers. And I come from the I come from the farming background myself, but we were Dorset farmers, and so that goes back donkey's years. And in fact, my maiden name is Buckland, and that means gift of land from the king. Not that he gave my forebears much land, but you can get the thread that that was where the name came from. And yes, we've been farming both sides of our, my husband and I, way back.
So what we've been talking about today, and it's been coming up very strongly, is, of course, which I didn't know, Sarah Dyke actually said 51% of farmers in this country are actually women, that the mental health situation is terrible, the land's in an awful state, and what was coming up from Rachel here has got a farm in Dorset with Rachel Hall with 100 odd acres, and Sarah is actually Sarah is actually on the land herself, growing it all herself. And they're both.
At the moment, not very much. Mainly planting trees, but some vegetables.
Yeah,
trying to get some more life.
I've been down there, and she's living off the land. And what we're talking about is, and there's Emma's got a forest school that she's running, and Jenny Mariotti's got Hawker's Farm up in Dorset, which is also doing amazing things. So what we were talking about is what is coming up for farmers today, and the big thing is to have accommodation. I don't know how that affects you, because you've got a family working with you.
I did put a few notes
Oh,
down
all
on
right.
my way back from
Okay,
market.
you've written something.
Yeah, but I've lost it now, haven't I?
Okay.
What did I put it? Everything you say.
But what's this? I mean, has
Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, so the accommodation thing. I mean, do you use what sort of workers do you have? Is it all family or
Can
is
I
it?
start?
Oh, good. Lulu, do you know Ruth Kimber as well?
Yes.
Good. I thought you probably did. So we're talking a lot about today about growing women connecting with the land, the spiritual connection women have with the land, the practical aspects of being a woman farmer in the world today. I know that your family feel very strongly, but quite understandably so, about the inheritance laws and all the rubbish that the tax that's going on and how it's affecting farmers generally. So go for it. What would you like to add to us?
I will give you a little potted history. As I mentioned, my father's name is Buckland, and he was born in Dorset. He was one of 3 children, the youngest, 2 sisters and then him, and his parents were on a rented farm. And it is, I mean, history does repeat itself in some ways. My grandfather used to work the land, milk cows, had chickens, the odd pig, and this sort of thing, make butter and cheese. And what they did back then, and I'm talking 1917, that sort of time. Yes, sorry, I'm tired, so I might be talking rubbish. I apologise. Anyway, so back then, what you did as a farmer, you produced what you could, whether it be grain or meat or milk or whatever it was, and you went directly to the market. So you didn't have a big supermarket buying things from you or buying things from a wholesaler. You did it yourself. And so that was quite tricky because you had eggs to sell, but you know, if you know anything about hens, they like to lay in the spring and not in the winter and so forth. So there used to be quite a lot of reserving of food back then. Isinglass for eggs, I don't know if anybody knows about them. Yeah. And also you've got making with butter and cheese in particular, that then secures the milk for when you've not got your cow milking very well. And so my grandfather used to trot off from a little village called Morden to Wareham, to the market there, and that's where he sold his stuff. But of course the roads weren't made up very well, and he would take his pony and trap and all laden up his produce. Well, on this particular day, in January 1917, he thought it's too icy to take the pony. I'm not going to risk the pony. So he loaded up his panniers on his bike, front, back, sides with as much as he could carry. And they were always dressed very well. If you could look back over the years and see how people turned out. So it was a bowler hat and, you know, smart, so it was very produced. Sadly, he had an accident on the way, or on the way back, do you know, I don't know. But anyway, he came off his bike, and as I mentioned, the roads were not very well made up, it was tracks really, and he dashed his head on a stone. And 2 days later, he died in Sherborne Hospital, which was dreadful. He was 43, left a wife and 3 children. My father, I think, was 5. And all of a sudden, knock on the door. Oh, Mrs. Buckland, I'm so sorry for your loss. But you'll have to leave the farm because the farm was in your husband's name. And so she lost her husband, she lost her home, she lost her income. And she was a very tough lady. She picked herself up, she had to, you know, leave the farm, and she went into a cottage which she didn't, it was a rented cottage in Thornford, just outside of Sherborne, and she became the postmistress, and she did gloving at night. And I think her strength has run through our family, because she could have felt sorry for herself. There was no state to say, here we are, missus, you can have that. So she had to work really hard. And she brought up the children, and she did well with those kids. They all did all right. And my father, like I say, he was 5 when it happened. And as soon as he could, he managed to do a bit of gardening in somebody's plot. And somebody gave him a pig. Do you know what I mean by Joey pig, anybody? Mm-hmm. Well, a Joey pig is the runt of the litter. Mm-hmm. It is the one that probably won't make it. Anyway, gave this pig to my dad. He then went round begging scraps all the way around the village, and he raised this pig until it was big enough to sell, sold that one, bought 2, and so it went on. And he amassed enough to put down the deposit on renting a farm, and that was at Cutlington. Now, today you could not do that because land is so expensive, and to set up a farm is hugely expensive. So for the young people to think that they might want to go farming, unless you've got a forebear in farming, it's really pretty hopeless. Which is very sad, because I think in our DNA is growing in farming, and you know, it's within a lot of us, isn't it? But I think a lot of people realise how blooming hard it is when you actually get to the reality of it, because it is 24/7, it really is. Particularly if you've got stock, and milking cows is probably daft to see what you can do if you've got any time on. Anyway,
that's one thing I'm not going to do.
No. No, the worst thing you do is to milk 1, because 1 is just as big a tie as 201. So anyway, that was sort of how I arrived in farming, and I would always opt to go out with my father on the farm as I was growing up. And I have a brother and a sister, but neither of them was quite so interested in farming as I was. So I would rush home from school and go out farming with Dad. He would say to me in the morning, look, the cows are in such and such a film, can you bring them up the lane as you come home from school? And so, you know, it's always been really part of me. But then, obviously go to school, and I went to Yeovil College, and then I had a nasty moment where I was travelling back. I did some babysitting for a family, and I came home with them. I only did it once. I came home with the chap. Got home, had a little chat. We were talking about chickens and hens and all sorts. And then he went. About 40 minutes later, the phone rang, and that was his wife. Well, he's not back yet. Did everything okay? And my mother said, well, I'll tell you what, we'll go along the road and see, you know, what's happened. Perhaps he's broken down, got a flat tire. He hadn't. He had left the road, hit a tree, in Rectory Lane, it's just past the church in Chelmsford Road, and he was dead. And I was the last person to have seen him age 16, and that really hit me hard, because I looked after these kids, she was expecting another one, and it really threw me. And because it was an unexplained death, really, there was an inquest and I had to go to that. So I never completed my course in Liverpool. It just... Anyway, well, along the same time my mother had cancer, so, you know, it was all sort of happening in my life then. Anyway, then I met my lovely husband, who was a farmer son next door, and his mother and my mother were friendly, and he said, well, if ever you've got a problem, give us a ring. Well, my father and I were calving a cow, and this blooming calf did not want to be born. And so my mother rang and said, oh, could you come down and give a hand? Anyway, so my husband and I met calving a cow. Sadly, well, it wasn't really, because the calf didn't survive. Anyway,
It's not romantic, only really a hand on the cow.
there you go. But you know, I often say, I've told this story a number of times, I said we've been doing it ever since. Well, we haven't now, because we've stopped because our son's taken it on. So we've always been immersed in farming, and I've always been well into it. You know, we're a partnership, my husband and I, not just on books, but as people, and we've been really lucky. His strengths have been one side of the business and mine have been another. And he's a lovely, rare man that is not jealous of anything I succeed in. And I think that is rare, because so many men hold women back because they don't want you to look better or different than them. And I've been really fortunate that he's not been one of those people.
So when did you open the farmer shop? Was that your idea?
Well, and then
Farm
As-
shop, farmers.
farming is always a challenge. We go from one different challenge to another, you know, foot and mouth and BSE and you know all the rest of it. I got very involved with the NFU, and you know, talking of women, being a woman in the NFU when I started was nearly as rare as my husband saw. You know, there weren't very many women at all. There was 4 of us out of 200 delegates, so you know, it was different.
It's a bit like Parliament.
Anyway, but they were, you know, the majority of the men were not at all adverse to women. They were nice chaps. Few were, but you know, you get that in any walk of life, don't you? And then we had 1 or 2 more join in, including Minette Batters, who you might have heard of, who rose right through the ranks, and she became our chairman and did a jolly good job as a woman.
Resigned about a year ago, didn't she?
Yeah,
She was local as well, wasn't she?
Yeah,
She was
Wiltshire.
No, she's
Wiltshire.
Wiltshire.
just in
Yeah.
Wiltshire.
So, with so much going on, and the income from the farming practice just was always a challenge. You'd always be waiting for the milk check. You'd always be saying to somebody, do you mind hanging on? Milk check's next week, you know, or can we split the bill in all this sort of business? It is stressful when you're in that position, and a lot of it you can't control, because farming is definitely weather. It's all about the weather and the markets coming in from abroad and the government. So you've got all these things that demand how you can try and make a living. So I started to sell a few bits and pieces. Used to raise a pen of pigs, and my friends, where they started friends, I think they avoided me after a bit. But, you know, it'd be half a pig. Now, come on, your family needs half a pig, of course it does. So we'd sell half pigs, and then I raised a pen of ducks. And so then they bought the ducks, and then they bought the big roasting chickens, you know, very big ones, not your supermarket little things, but really lovely big chickens that had a life before they were dealt with. So I did that. And then people said, oh, but you've got beef. Can we have some of your beef? I thought, I don't know how I'm going to do that. And then Wincanton Farmers Market opened.
Oh, was there a Wincanton Farmers Market?
Yeah.
Was there? Where was
Yeah,
that?
up in the Memorial Hall.
Was it?
Yes.
How long ago was that?
About 1995 or 6 or 7, something like
For a
that.
long ago. And what happened?
Well, so we had the farmers market, and it was
In the car park area? Or
No,
not?
in
the
the-
hall
in the
itself?
hall.
Right, okay.
and there was, there was tables all the way around, 2 or 3 meat producers, apple juice, honey, cakes, all sorts actually, fish. Anyhow, that went on for some time, and then one of the people, mushrooms, was a wonderful mushroom store. She said, "Oh, you ought to go to Bath, or you ought to go to Shaftesbury. Shaftesbury first." So then I went to Shaftesbury as well, because there were different days. Shaftesbury's once a month or on a Saturday, and Wincanton used to be on a Friday. So that was fine, we could do that. And so we took our, the first time, I would tell my husband, he did make me cross over this. When we started doing the farmers market, I thought, well, I don't know how, what to take, difficult. So I took some beef, but it was frozen, because at that point, we didn't have enough to keep on having it fresh. So I took a little box of frozen meat, which we had weighed out, bagged up, handwritten the labels, and then I defrosted a nice joint of topside or something, and put on a meat plate in front. And I was so pleased. I sold £76 worth of meat that day. I was delighted. And I got home and Paul said to me, "How did you get on?" And I said, "Well, £76 worth." I said, "What? You've been there all morning and you couldn't sell." Anyway, when it became many hundreds, Ruth does farmers markets, and then when it became a bit more established and successful, we do farmers markets. Anyway, and it continued in Wincanton for some time, until they did have lots of different committees and changes. And we were then accused, the farmers market, were accused of making us scratch in the floor. And they threw us out.
Oh my God, because we've all been saying this morning, we need a farmer's market.
They
no
threw
idea
us
this.
out. They threw us out.
Oh God.
And so we then went in the back of the pub and in the alleyways, and in the end it was just too difficult.
Scratch on the floor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry we don't have a farmer's market now.
No.
Sorry.
You mentioned Shaftesbury Farmers
Yes.
Market. And Shaftesbury Farmers Market does still exist.
Yes.
And it's struggling at the moment.
Yeah.
Is it? Why?
So, well,
There's
people
not
tell you.
enough. There's not enough of us. I tell you, markets are hard work. You work hard to prepare what you're going to take, and then you work hard at the market, and then you work hard at preserving what you haven't sold. So that's the other side of it.
Sherborne has one once a month, isn't it?
Yes. Mm.
As well as the ordinary market, they've got a proper farmers market once a month.
And the one in Bath you do is that?
It's every week.
And is that a lot of tourists or?
No,
locals?
it's
Well, that's very
people get
successful.
come all the time, every week.
Yeah,
That is part of their life,
yeah,
is to come to the market.
yeah. Well, that one's successful.
And Froome's good, isn't it?
Froome used to be good,
Okay.
but I don't do that one anymore. There's always some stupid people that spoil things, Well, that was a very good farmers market. And then there was a lady who used to run it, and she finished for whatever reason. And then another young lady, she decided that she would run it. And we would have to do the expand the stall and the squeeze the stall, depending on how many stall holders turned up, so that the place didn't look, tiny. There's a big hall. It's the one in
The grain.
in cheese and grain. And with that one, you had lots of stalls all the way around, and then if 2 or 3 people didn't turn up, you then had gaps, and people didn't wouldn't be very good. So I was asked if I could expand. So I would then expand. Then the next week they'd say, "Oh, you can't have that much room." It drove me mad.
That's you can't do produce.
No.
So where we're at now is we don't really have so the nearest farmers market we have, if there is one at all, is Froome. Should have never done a farmers market at the Bath and West, that too big.
No,
Sherborne's your nearest one.
it would be too expensive in the Garden West.
Oh, Castle Carey's got a tiny one, haven't they?
Yes, well, I did that one for a while.
Yeah, I used to go to Castle Curry one and then it sort of gradually got less and less on offer.
But I think what's happened with me, we used to have all that lovely produce I've mentioned and lots of lovely stuff up at Bath. So I buy that and I bring it and I populate my shop with it. So it's like,
Swapping.
it's a bit like a farmer's market in a permanent place
Yeah. Yeah.
because it is that sort of quality of,
Because when I was a child, everything was just markets. I lived in Kingston as a child, and there was the market, and there was the vegetable market, the bread market,
Yeah.
the fish market, the meat market, and it was there every day, and that's where you bought your food.
Yeah.
They introduced supermarkets, but the market was strong.
yeah.
And so there was a market every day in some towns twice a week. Bridport
Yeah.
has an amazing market, a mixed market, 3 streets of market, twice a week. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. But any towns, and Shepton Mallet used to have a market, every town used to have a market. But because the supermarkets came in, that's
Yeah.
where the markets have dwindled. So
Absolutely.
farm shops have now set up because A, the farmers need to diversify, you need to sell the produce. It's a better, easier way for you to manage selling stuff. As in, you have to transport it with the health and safety and stuff. You've got chillers and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And then you get other people bringing their stuff into your farmers market. That's what has now become the farmers market.
Markets.
So it's the shift.
Yeah.
And it's a very romantic view of let's go to the farmer's market.
It is.
But it's not very practical in today's world, unless you've got a big conurbation like Bath or Salisbury or somewhere.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
you
I
have
was
to have the people.
I was asked to do the Froome market with my hobbit,
Yeah.
and it was, but this was the weekly one every Saturday, and I just thought I
No.
mean,
It's impractical.
I can't do
because
it.
you're not going to sell enough to make it worthwhile.
no,
because
and it's
not.
only me.
Yeah.
So it's not bad. So I've just got a small shop on the farm,
Yeah.
and you know, if I'm over with the sheep in the sheep pens, I can if something rings on my phone and
You nip over.
I nip over.
Yeah.
But you know, then people are buying local. They're coming to the farm
Yes.
and they're seeing how we farm.
Yeah.
You do all my butchery for me, Jason and Sam.
But you see, that's how it's grown. So
Yeah.
we're now helping other small holders
Yeah.
to carry on and do what they want to do and want to have it done properly. Because, you know, you can go to a slaughterhouse and have it cut. But, you know,
No,
a slaughterhouse isn't a
And I
butcher.
tried other butchers, and honestly, I wouldn't go anywhere but you.
Well, I just go as a consumer, I would go, you know, I've got a big one of your chickens for tomorrow's lunch, I can't wait. But, I mean, yeah, it's an interesting time. So would anybody like to ask some questions?
Can I just say, I think this is a fantastic setup and all the speakers you've had are great. It's also a bit of an echo chamber
Yeah.
because everybody here would love to go to farmers markets and support local, which is wonderful, but it's trying to persuade the other people who don't to come to us, and
Yeah.
that comes back to education again,
Mm.
and underlining that the food in supermarkets, cheap food, isn't actually cheap. You know, it's wrecking the environment and it's wrecking our health, and that
Doing
costs
this,
us through our taxes to pay for the NHS and to try to clean up waterways, etc., etc. So it does boil down, I think, to education.
Yeah.
For me,
Mm.
personally.
Yeah.
And I think you're right about the farm shop now. We have to almost ape the supermarkets and give convenient shopping to people who are busy, because life now is busy for
Yeah.
everybody and they can't
And a
go
lot
from
of
one
people
store
who-
to another to another.
Exactly. And a lot of people who like the idea of going to a farmer's market, they've got other things to do at weekends.
Yeah.
You know, it's most of the people in Bath live close enough that they can nip into the market and out again.
Yeah, not a whole day thing.
Yeah.
So it's quite interesting actually. The one place that I understand where farmers market is doing really well is London. I mean, Penny Nagel, who would have been here
Same
normally.
principle.
Sorry?
Same principle.
They can just pop. They
It's
can
you
walk
walk
past on
into
my
your
head.
That's what's the
neighbourhood,
market,
you
you see
scoop
this,
and
yeah.
you get back
Yeah,
and
but
get
it's
on with
also
your
that
day.
sort of, I mean, it's also that kind of like, they're urban, but they want to feel like they're at the farmer's
Yes.
market. There's that sort of cool factor as well.
I
It's like,
think
Yeah.
there's so
and
much
Penny's selling her
convenience.
cheese. You know, Penny's got her cheese, you know, what's her farm called? I'm so tired, I can't think what it's called anymore. But you all know, I'm sure you all know Penny Nagel. Anyway, she has these fantastic organic cheeses. You know Penny, you sell her cheeses.
Yeah.
And they are now spending every weekend in London, putting a whole team together, doing all the farmers markets in London because they can't sell it out here. Sorry, who was
Oh,
that?
Felton
Felton
Farms.
Farms,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Felton
yeah,
Farms.
yeah.
And they came down, saying, looking for farm for ages, found the right farm, worked incredibly hard because to get their cheeses right, bless you. And have got the fantastic cheeses, won all these awards, sell a bit to Waitrose who completely, you know, destroy them in terms of discounts. I shouldn't say that publicly, but yeah.
No, he said the same. So.
They do, she said it really. And so they've gone to London to sell at the farmers' markets there. Now, why do the farmers' markets work there and not here?
I mean, the Frume Independent's doing really well.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
The
And
Frume
also has to be-
Independent is very popular, one Sunday a month,
Mm.
but it has a
Yeah.
massive
Not a lot
mix
of
of
food in
things.
there,
It's
is
not
it?
the same as the Frume Farmers
No.
Market.
No.
But it does,
Yeah.
it
Brings a lot of
it's
people
interesting
in.
to see that when you have a real diverse
Yeah.
mix of things, then
Yeah.
it maybe helps sustain the farmer's side.
But then the other side of that is, if you're a farmer and you're working from dawn to dusk,
Yeah.
and then you're going to the market, and then somebody wants you to go to a Sunday market, to be honest, it's just too much. You're going to kill the people. You
Yeah.
can't do it. It's not sustainable.
So you've got a shop that people come to Kimber's, and you've got a
Yes.
shop that people come to Gutchbull, and maybe that's like a more realistic, because people can travel.
And yeah, it's as you were saying, you've got to. If there's also another group of people that give us all headaches, and that is the health and safety people for your staff and for your animals, and then for the food. So you've got your inspections to cope with and all of that.
Yeah.
And so it does make it real hard work. It really is. And it's a big diversity of work. You know, you're not just doing one little thing. You're having to be clever at all of it, really.
That's where the accommodation thing comes in, because farms used to employ loads of people. So you'd have somebody who specialised with the cows, somebody who specialised with this, somebody who's made machinery, somebody who would do this. You had that number of people on farms.
Right, yeah.
And because now farms don't have that number of
No.
people working on it, it's very difficult to man a farm because you're on your own. I'm on my own. You've got a family now running it, but that's unusual actually. That's
It's
not
even more
normal
unusual
now.
with the new tax laws.
Yeah, and that's a disaster. But there used to be loads of those people living and working
Yes.
on the farm.
Yes.
Because we now can't have certain accommodation on farms, we can't employ certain people on farms, you can't have that number of people.
Well, and the other side is you've got to look for the people that want to be working on the farms.
Yeah.
You know, do you want to work 6 days a week?
Well, there are some people who do, but they want
but-
to go on to slightly different types of farms because you can't now employ, you can't afford to employ and house that number of
Exactly.
people.
It's just not enough money in it
No.
to pay what people deserve to be
Yeah.
paid.
So this is where we've got the cleft stick situation, have to run their own little business.
But I think that's a good model. If
It is
people
that-
run their
yeah,
own
that's-
business
yeah.
on a farm, you know.
That can work, but it's not the same as having loads of people running a farm and doing all those different things where you can go to the market and do this and do that. So the model has changed, the pattern has changed.
And it's all right as long as everybody's well.
Yeah.
If you're one man band and you fall sick, then where are you then?
Yeah.
It is tricky.
Yeah, it's interesting. But as you were saying, it is an echo chamber, and but there has to be some kind of answers. I don't know what they are, but there has to be. There is this demand more and more for healthy food, for ecologically. I can't even speak anymore. I'm speaking so much today. I'm not making any sense. But anyway, I mean the whole area of herbs, natural rewilding, all the things that we've been hearing about from all of you, getting the earth better. There's something there. I can feel it, and it will come from, I guess, conversations. I mean, you had some amazing things to say, Luna, today about what's happening with the earth and women's soul spirits, how we can connect in. I still feel that kind of connection there on some level, but I'm not sure. And then you hit the practical sides of what you're saying, Ruth. It's all very well, we've got a big farmer who's going to actually, or what you're saying, Rachel, as well. It's like, is there a solution? Is there anything? Or what's going to happen? We're all going to end up buying packaged rubbish from supermarkets and our children.
I think it was
as well.
you saying, you know, the root cause really, or you can track it back to where things started to go wrong on the land and in farms, is the supermarket.
Yeah.
That is the one word.
Yeah.
That is the supermarket, because they would want to stack it high, sell it cheap.
Yeah.
They squeeze the price the whole time.
So they
It
squeeze
also
it.
made the farmers behave differently because that meant that the farmers had to get all the chemicals in to produce more food
Yeah,
more
yeah.
cheaply, and that's what's ruined the soil. So you've
So
got
it
this
goes
double
on
whammy.
and on.
And people are feeling very, quite rightly so, there is a reason for it, feeling poor. They can't afford
yeah.
to
Yeah.
buy farm
Well, there's
food.
also another overwhelming problem at the moment that everybody's becoming very asset poor. So even farms are now asset poor because farms have had to sell off land in order to selling off equity to get money out means that that land now belongs to bankers or big businesses.
Yeah.
And property is happening the same. Older people are being sell off, release your equity. No, please do not, because the bank now owns your property, and the bank is not the guy down the high street, it's some corporate business somewhere we don't even know. So we're now asset poor. People don't have
The lady
money.
at the back would like to ask something.
Yes, I have a question because I'm a great supporter of organic food and I don't like to buy at supermarket at all. But I've noticed locally there seems to be a shortage of sources to buy organic vegetables. There's much more fruit and dairy products, meat and dairy products. That's my impression. Why is that? Is that because there's more subsidies? Is it because it's easier to have livestock when you go organic?
I think if you look at England,
Yes.
and Wales, but we've looked at England, if you look at the type of land, soil that we have, this area, the southwest, really lends itself to produce milk and meat.
Yes.
If you go up to the northeast, Lincolnshire and all those sort of places,
Yeah.
that really lends itself to producing vegetables.
Soil type then.
It
Yeah,
is mostly
it is.
soil type, and also we do get quite a lot of rain down here.
Yes.
Whereas up in the northeast, they've got good grade A soil to produce vegetables, and not quite so much rain. Enough, but not so much. And so the land dictates to you what you will be successful with. I mean, there's areas in Cornwall where they grow fantastic potatoes and cauliflowers and cabbages and such like, but not so much here. There's a little bit down the way on the A303 where you can grow nice potatoes. But with that, you can't grow potatoes in the same land each year
Sure.
because there's a build-up of disease, build-up of
Potatoes
worms and
depletes
stuff.
the minerals.
Yeah, so you can't, it's all a lot more complicated than it looks on the face of it.
It
Yes,
needs to be
but
done on small scale, small
Well, that
mixed
was-
farms.
That was my next question because I know a few small market gardens which I get the impression are fairly successful because I think there's a market niche as well for that. But obviously I'm not a farmer, so I don't know how difficult that is.
Well,
I
I
think-
think that some of the market gardens are quite intense, so
Yes.
they will specialise in and they will become quite intense.
Yes.
There's a really nice one over at Pitney and Higher Farm, which is local to here. They would grow in vegetables, but it's mainly for their use in their own restaurants.
Which
There
one
are
was that?
small Higher Farm, which is over near
Yes,
Castle
that's
Cherry,
right, yeah.
Cherry.
Pitney.
And
Yes,
there's
and Pitney
which is
Farm,
on the way
that's-
up there.
That's exactly, Pitney Farm Shop is,
Yeah.
you know.
So there are quite a few. In fact, there was
Yeah.
one at Plotgate, which is just has a huge upheaval, but they used to specialise in vegetables. So there are small pockets. I've got vegetables on my land.
There was
Yeah.
also people that would be successful with gardening,
Yeah.
but they would be reliant on volunteers to
Yes.
make it successful.
I think the
Yes,
other
I
thing
think
is, because I've looked at going organic, but I'm still not sure whether to go organic. I farm organically. I don't know that I need to pay the Soil Association or Oxford Organic
Yeah.
Farmers and Growers,
A slug of what you're doing.
yes,
Yeah.
and it's prescriptive. They will
Yeah.
tell me what I'm
Yeah.
allowed, and
Yes.
I know how to farm well.
Yeah.
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 I do now, but
So I'm an accredited organic farmer, and I have to say it's very expensive.
yes,
And yes, they do dictate to a point, which can be difficult. And you might need to ask for derogations if you wanted to use a different seed. It isn't ideal, but I think if you want to know 100% that your food is organic, because a lot of people call themselves organic, but I'll just throw some slug pellets around because it's a difficult year. The only way is to be properly accredited.
and I think that's certainly for horticulture.
Oh, I think across the board, actually.
Well, okay, but I'm happy for anyone to come to my farm and
Sure,
see how I
and
do
I'm
it.
sure
So-
you produce it beautifully.
and I know there are no inputs, and so
Yeah.
and I think if people go to a farm and they can talk to the farmer and they can
Agree.
see the produce.
Yeah.
I think there's a middle way, to be honest, because with our farm, we're not chucking goodness knows what muck on our fields to poison it. And if you've been in the same place for 350 years and you're not organic, you're not doing a bad job. Otherwise the land would not produce. You know, if
Agree.
you're poisoning it, it would not produce.
Agree.
The way we farm with the advice of agronomists. We soil test constantly. We don't use anything on our cattle unless they need it. And this is where I do get a bit fed up with, you won't do this and you won't do that with dictation from others. If, the way I explain it with our animals, I would not withdraw anything from my children if they were ill. I would go to the medicine pot if they needed some medicine. And it's the same with our animals.
Yeah,
If they
I
need
agree.
the medicine, they get it. It's like using modern science wisely. Not to produce a lot of muck that people don't want to eat. Not to have things in their milk or their meat that they didn't know was there. So we don't use anything on the farm that would be traceable within our produce. And the other thing with the organic, my daughter was an organic inspector, OFS and G. Who are you with?
Soil
Your
association.
soil association. She did both. And what she didn't like was that some were doing it for the money and not for the...
Totally.
And so there would be cheating going on. And but being a farmer's daughter, she knew. She'd be taken into a farm and she said, well, this doesn't really work out, what's wrong? And on more than one occasion, she'd be taken to the farm and then the little child would be, one of the farmer's kids would be there. Oh, we're going up to the other buildings,
Yeah.
And so you've got to believe in the person.
Yeah,
Not
it's
necessarily,
trust, doesn't
yes.
it? It's trust. And
Yes.
that's where if you buy local and you speak to the
Yes,
farmers, you want to
absolutely.
build up a relationship.
And people who are really passionate about it, excellent. But I'm afraid there are those, but it's always the same in life, isn't it? And to be fair to you, there's not enough price difference between the organic and what I would call the middle road, you and me, us, and then the mass production. There's not enough difference between those three ways of farming. Anyway,
Well, I'm going to draw it to a close because it's 3:45 and some people have been here for not. It's been an amazing day. Thank you, Ruth, so much for coming up.
well, I'm
Such a busy
sorry I
time at the
couldn't
market.
have listened in to all the rest of it.
Well, it's brilliant you've been here. We have filmed it all, and thank you very much indeed, Rachel, and everybody that's been here. And Emma hasn't talked about her forest school, but if anybody would like to see her vision, which is beautiful. And where is the forest school?
It's in Bishop's Condor.
Okay, and it's just starting, and it's a little is, and so if anybody's got grandchildren,
And that is excellent.
yes,
Honestly, that is
Yeah.
where it should start. Forest schools for kids,
yeah,
then move it round so that they can see a local farm,
yeah.
and it is,
Yeah. Well, it's about education.
Forest school,
It's
farm school.
definitely about
That's
education.
what I want to get on. That's one of the
Yeah.
Forest school, farm school. That's
Mm.
nice. Now, it is about education. It is about the children and how do we get them involved. And if we can't do it here in a rural area like Somerset, where can we do it? But thank you all very much. If anybody's got anything burning, I think we've covered an awful lot of stuff. We have agreed to do a circle for those who've got time to wait. We're just going to do a closing circle in the garden. There are seeds. I think Sarah,
I've took those seeds out there. Some
Yeah,
plastic
Sarah
jars
put
and-
seeds out there. and Lulu put seed bulbs out there. So if anybody wants to take seeds and bulbs, or organic seeds and bulbs, home with them, please do. And I want to thank everybody. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.